Hi everyone, happy weekend. I thought I'd do an update on the monthly charts, which I've been updating over the last couple of days to see new monthly zones, etc, etc. And yeah, that's about it. Yeah, I'm kind of unfortunately not across the whole market as well as I would like to be, mainly because I've been trying to focus still on updating all the alt charts for the end of the year. I've still got a way to go on that. But yeah, then hopefully in the next couple of weeks I'll finish that, and then I can get back onto being slightly more accurate on Bitcoin. So I thought I'd go back to this sort of high time frame parabola chart just to see where it was. So obviously not much has changed, I think, since I last updated this, but just to reiterate, I was looking at this box for a possible reversal anyway. It's from the 61 retracement fib to the 78.6 retracement fib, trend fib, and then between the 127 and the 161 retracement fib, and that's comparable to previous waves. So we had using that, we don't have much data to work from here, and there's no real reason it should follow the same pattern anyway. Things are quite different now, but the first two impulses went to the 78% trend fib and the 227 retracement fib, and they were much more simple. They didn't pull back much. I mean, it was 80% in the grand scheme of things, but from a fib perspective, they didn't pull back that much. But they pull back less, also corrected to 161 retracement fib and to the 141 retracement fib. Then the last wave reached the 61% trend fib and the 161 retracement fib, so slightly less high as you see the rolling over the parabola. And that retraced more deeply, again from a fib perspective, although in percentage terms less. So while these retraced 80%, more than 80%, I think this retraced only 77%. And then now we've reached the 61% trend fib, and so far the 127 retracement fib. And this is also the linear 161%. So there's just lots of different percentages here, but hence why I had this box. I'm not sure why it's slightly high. Maybe I thought it might overshoot onto the parabola there, but yeah, this is the start of where I was looking for a possible rejection, being at that 61 retracement fib. But we have now created a monthly demand, so it's a weak monthly demand, but I like this structure. This is clean for me. From a trading perspective, so we're basically looking for longs in monthly demand. If monthly demand breaks and we close below here, we're looking for shorts off that flip to monthly supply. So it becomes very simple, as opposed to when you look at the lows. So previously we've had the 3 week and we took a wick through it. So that also might happen when you have a weak demand. Just bear in mind that it could wick through this but then close back above, and we have seen that a number of times in the past. But yeah, when you look at that high time frame compared to the sort of mess and the trading we're trying to get in the lower time frames, and we actually do have a weekly demand here that I've called for longs on over the last week. Yeah, when it becomes messy on the lower time frames, if you can just flip up to the higher time frame, then you can see exactly what's going on. And again, just from the range perspective, I'll show you on this chart because this is cleaner than my busy other supposedly high time frame chart. This whole consolidation is bounded by this daily demand at the bottom, so again we're looking for that to hold, barring a wick. If we do break through this and close below this, then we're very much looking for shorts. But while we're above this, we're still good. So we've had a kind of volatile weekend, which has been quite painful, yeah, what Trump's going to do in every comment he makes seems to really impact the markets. Let's go back to my other list. Yeah, so we're probably going to have to put up with that for a little while longer, and the markets are still, even the dollar's still quite indecisive as to what it's doing. Looking at the more detailed chart and some of the entries I've given, so this week, yeah, I've just found hard, but like I say, I have been focusing more on alts and trying to keep them updated. But I was looking for a stop hunt of these highs here on that, and it took a while to play out, but did eventually play out. I was then looking at the possibility of a long here. I did say in the last stream I didn't like this zone, but because it's 12-hour, I'm trying to be objective. could have given a bounce up to here. But in this case, it didn't. It's just kind of drifted back through it. And then similarly, like again, I've said before, when I have many zones like this, I then think, you know, you do run the risk of running through all of them. So be a bit careful on that. This zone was a zone again that was just missed here. Yeah, so it's kind of run through that zone as well. But critically, and what you need to do when I'm giving these zones is just see what's changed in the structure. So what really happened last night is that we got a close with a 2-day supply, and then today it instantly tapped up into that 2-day supply and dumped off it. So then, you know, obviously a long there becomes significantly lower probability if it's coming immediately off our higher time frame supply. So personally, I wasn't trading yesterday, but I wouldn't have taken that one on that basis. But given I can't update all the time, please be aware of these things as and when they happen. As I've said, like, we've got this new monthly demand now, so I've kind of made that cross. And I said previously anyway that these two entries were more viable and better, like higher probability than the potential entries that I had higher for longs on scalps. So I've made this one green just so we can be aware that it's the monthly zone. Obviously, it can still go deeper into the monthly zone if it wants to. But yeah, so keep an eye on that as and when it hits. Obviously, we've got a CME gap higher now. And also, the CME has made monthly demand as well, but the CME level is higher. So on the normal US dollar chart, our monthly demand is 96,530. And the CME is here at 98,875. So if we closed around current price, we would find CME already on the monthly level. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I don't want to make too many more judgments on this until I see, you know, firstly where the weekly close is, and secondly, you know, what we're going to get on the first couple of days of next week, and if the dollar's going to open with a gap, etc. As it stands, we have that 2-day supply already, and it's looking like we're going to make a 3-day supply at this level just above. So, and the gap potentially might be around, again, I haven't looked at the detail, but the gap might be around that level or possibly higher actually. But yeah, just keep an eye on a sort of gap fill, and a possible rejection here would be what I would say on the short side. But then obviously I'm not going to be biased to short if we hit the monthly first. So yeah, like I say, I want to see a first few days, you know, if we come back up now, maybe negate this 3-day, close around the gap, then I would look for another drop to take along into monthly demand. If we drop further now, coming into monthly demand today, tomorrow, without testing supply, then I'd be much less inclined to look for shorts at supply with on the 3-day supply, etc., but having come from a monthly demand. So yeah, just be a little bit wary of that. US dollar dominance, again, as I said in the previous update, it actually looked like it was going to continue down in the last update, but it kind of changed its mind fairly rapidly after that. We're still running in this very tight sideways range, and any supply and demand in there is weak until we break out of the range. Still in a 5-day supply. It looks like it's not going to create a weekly supply, which is what it looked like yesterday. How quickly things can change. Again, might create a 3-day demand in here. So that's another possibility. Looking for a long on the 3-day demand, i.e. shorts on the rest of the market if this comes back down to test, if it confirms. There's no new monthly on this, so it's interesting that let's take some of my stuff off it so you can see. This is not going to create a because of the alt market being super weak, this is not going to create a monthly supply in contrast to Bitcoin's monthly demand. So yeah, where we would look for potential shorts, i.e., you know, when Bitcoin's hitting that monthly, we just don't quite have the confluence, and the confluence hasn't really been there for me since the start of the year and since Christmas, messing around over Christmas. So it's making my life a little bit difficult because I use a lot of confluence in these charts to increase the probabilities. Similarly, Korea I think has been super strong. The Bitcoin Korea chart has been much stronger than the Bitcoin US dollar chart, mainly because US dollar is so much stronger than the Korea pair. But given Korea, obviously, I guess the Asia side is heavy traders. It's always worth watching. I always like to look for both charts for confluence. So critically on the Korea chart, we don't have a monthly demand, but we do have a 2-week just below, and maybe a 3-week. No, not a 3-week, a 2-week just below, and a weekly, which still haven't been tested. So even if the Bitcoin chart, let me put my drawings back, comes deeper into the monthly demand, you can look for confluence. Sorry, drawings back, like I said. So while this entry for a long here is quite aggressive, being on the top of monthly demand on the US dollar pair, what I would look for is confluence, at least with the Korea pair hitting the top of that 2-week level, or deeper inside on the weekly. And yeah, so and this I think isn't going to create, might create a 3-day supply, but it's very much on the cusp of it at the moment. So it could go either way right now. And I think didn't create a 2-day either, but has dropped since then. Yeah, so we're getting a bit of a catch up, but might create a daily supply. So getting a bit of the confluence back now. And what else? That's probably about it on Bitcoin. US dollar dominance, I just want to see break out of this range one way or the other now. Like, it's just very much sideways for an extended period of time, which makes it, supply is not clear anymore. So I think, it's more probable that we go up, but it just doesn't align with what we see on Bitcoin at the moment. Yeah, so looking for that monthly demand to get tested is probably the critical thing, and if it doesn't get a decent bounce off that monthly demand, then we might end up being short biased by next month. Ether, yeah, I was slightly more bullish on Ether purely because of the prospect that this ETHBTC pair could have created a double bottom, had a swing fail there, and it pushed up, and I was probably overly biased to longs on Ether US dollar on that basis. However, it hasn't managed to break local supply yet. So what you're really looking for, and this is really just a local range here, in fact the proper supply is higher, but this is sort of intra-range supply, this 2-day. When you're looking for that reversal, you're looking for prices coming down in a downtrend. You're looking for it to break the last down move, come back, test demand, and then your entry. So this hasn't, so while it had a decent strong move, which hasn't closed strong on the 2-day now at all, but had a decent strong move up on the daily, it didn't break that most recent supply, and even that's a weak supply because of the wick coming off it. So strictly you want it to break even a higher supply. So we are coming back down now. We can still look for longs on this, or look for the bounce on 12-hour demand just in here, and just see if we start to hold this range and get a higher low there. Ether itself, so I was short biased on this, as you know, because we're in 3-week supply. It was hard to get the high on this because there was just all this chop around here, so I was a little bit early and then a little bit late, and obviously it decided to reject right between my 2 entries, which is annoying. But yeah, so I said I was short biased due to 3-week supply, this giant blue zone. And then I was looking for a rejection off this consolidation at the top of the last drop, or for it to take out some of these stops up here into it and close the second CME gap. So unfortunately we didn't get that high, we didn't close the second CME gap, and it just rejected, having taken, what's that, probably the previous week's high, or last Friday's high anyway, whether it's the previous week, I'm not sure. This is now currently looking like it's going to create a weekly supply. So at the moment I've just got that drawn as a black dash line at this level. So again, I'll continue to be short biased on that if that is the case. We already had various others, and it also might create a new 3-day similar to Bitcoin just below that. So what's my question? Ether hit 3,000 levels, please tell me. Will it hit 3,000? At this stage I think very possibly. So my bias on this, if it's coming off 3-week supply, my bias is down. 3-week supply, I expect it to take out this low. We're still holding, again, it's difficult because similar to Bitcoin, we're still holding here this weekly barring a wick, or this 4-hour, which is bounding the top of the bottom of this consolidation. And I saw somebody say, somebody posted on Twitter on this something, saying Ether likes to break up from these descending triangles, and I briefly commented on my last video, but I don't think it particularly likes to. It can. Here it did. So, we are saying similar structure here, so maybe we'll see a giant candle. But this is when the ETF was released, so I don't think it's necessarily a normal move. And if you look back at other history on Ether, for me, it seems more inclined to break down from descending triangles. So here we had a small descending triangle, broke down. Here, small descending triangle, broke down. And this is less of a descending triangle, but maybe a larger descending triangle, but ended up breaking down. This is another one that broke up, but for me, it's 50-50. I don't think we're not saying, I don't want to say one way or the other until I actually see the break. So Ether, like from a macro perspective, I don't want to be longing at these levels. For me, this is multiple hits, including a wick through of this zone. It's up to you if you still want to trade this zone, assuming a higher low, that's a viable trade. But for me, I would want to see the move up and then a new demand, etc. So far we've had a move up that's ended in a swing failure. It tried to break out of this trend line, but has closed back inside. So for me, that isn't a strong move out of to break this trend. You know, I have had the long entry on this 12-hour demand, which I think is either just swing failed the low or just held the low. But again, up to you. So for me, like, it's much more viable to look for longs down in this weekly, monthly, 2-weekly zone down here now. And even then, like, I think, like, again, just to reiterate previous comments, this zone is not strong either. If this zone is a zone of demand that has been unable to make a higher high. So I don't even think these are particularly strong levels for longs, but I would like to think Ether isn't just going to run straight off a cliff straight through it. So we'll see as and when that zone gets tested, but it's not strong demand there either. Not for me. So yeah, on these now, I really want to see a bit more. We had a nice move on Ether last week, but it hasn't really gone further. It's in the 3-week supply, and at this point, I expect lower. The other thing just to watch out for, again, to reiterate previous comments on this, is the Ether Korea pair. So Ether Korea, the only thing that makes me more bullish is that this made an annual demand, and it didn't quite test it on the previous wick. So there is a possible trade on Ether where if the US dollar pair comes down and takes out the previous wick, and we have confluence with Ether Korea hitting this annual level, which I have alerted, so if you're in the group you'll get that alert, then we can see if we get that bounce. But again, if we're going to put in weekly supply now, I just can't be particularly bullish on this. You know, if it bounces strongly before the end of the day, then I'll reconsider and I'll do another update next week. But at the moment, I'm not bullish on Ether. Still not bullish on Ether, I should say, based on that 3-weekly supply. And I would expect that, you know, it still needs to break this zone, but I probably do expect lower on Ether. Look at the majors quickly. So I don't think any of the majors had any new monthly supplies. I think maybe 1 or 2 look like they're going to make a new 2-week supply, but even that, like, obviously hasn't been much movement. Very glad I put the more aggressive short entries on for you last week, because they all worked. So for the old majors here, we have Litecoin. I had a tight entry on the 8-hour supply here, which had a nice drop. BCH and an alert on this 3-week supply. I kind of wanted this to take out the highs above 455, which it didn't, but just reacted straight off the level, and EOS in this daily supply inside the 3-week. So again, like, yeah, aggressive shorts gave nice entries on those. I don't think I've made any changes. So similar to Bitcoin and Ether, like looking like we're going to get a 3-day supply on EOS, a 3-day supply on BCH, and a 3-day supply on Ripple. So be a bit careful of those. And again, I might need to update later in the week, but might put some short entries on those. On BCH, we already made a 2-day, and Ripple, we also made that 2-day supply. BCH has already rejected that as of today, similar to Bitcoin. So yeah, we're still in this sort of downward daily 2-day, 5-day weekly structure. And yeah, so EOS, back to previous long entries that I've had, EOS, you know, there is a 3-day here. I've just been more conservative because it's EOS, and there's a 3-day below, which coincides with the monthly levels. But, you know, you can look here, it is a 61 fib if you want. Ripple has got this 2-week demand, so again, you can look for longs there if you want, but because of the previous structure that I've just drawn so many times that I think Ripple loves to do, draw it again for you quickly. Triangle, fake out, drop. I'm not looking for longs in this demand. However, if you want to do that, feel free. I may not be right, but just for me, it's not a high probability trade, so I'm not looking for longs on there, but you can if you want. Litecoin actually was one of the stronger ones, and I quite like the Bitcoin chart, but I need to go back and to probably do another stream looking at the Bitcoin charts on these. But I think Litecoin was one of the ones I actually didn't mind the Bitcoin chart, so this is interesting. I still have that slightly more aggressive entry on the 2-day demand. But even then, you know, we have hit 3 month supply at the highs, so I just don't think I can be overly bullish. It's got, you know, made weekly demand by a hair and it's come back inside that, but I don't know. Still need to see a bit more of this sideways consolidation, but Litecoin obviously is looking a little bit stronger than EOS and BCH, and Ripple has its own thing going on. But yeah, you can look for shorts on the new 3-day supplies if we get retests, and if Bitcoin supports that, feel free. And then we'll just see what happens in the next couple of days. Hi, all your crypto dropped 20% over the last 3 days. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the alt market's just been utterly horrendous. So yeah, I don't really, like, I'm getting a lot of alts hitting monthly demands and things like that. So I think there's a chance we can get a decent bounce, but yeah, I think it's going to take some time, so I don't think you need to be FOMOing into anything. But also, you know, if you're already trapped in there, just try and work out where the next demand is and see if you should sell, if it's a big distance to the next demand, or if it's close, because so many of them are quite choppy. But if you see something with a monthly supply, I would strongly suggest you get out of it, or certainly get out on a test of the monthly supply. Okay, so quickly on BNB. So again, BNB link. Poll and ADA, none of these created a new monthly supply. I don't think we've got any no new 2 weeks on that either. So it's back to those lower time frames. So ADA's looking like it'll create the same 3-day. So is Link, and 2-day we already had one created on Poll. I'll just take that level out so you can see it. So again, there could be an instant. We were on 2-week demand on Poll, and we had a little bounce off that, but it didn't get very far and is now coming back deeper into the zone. Not looking for any longs on that at the moment. 2-day on Binance on BNB has just been rejected. So again, that's not something I want to long right now, nor ADA. The only thing I changed on this from previous updates was that I added an entry on this 3-day demand on ADA, because it is holding a bit more strongly, and maybe I was a bit too conservative having the next entry down here. But this is the more highly probable entry on 6-month demand and the 2-day and 3-day. But yeah, I have put a slightly more aggressive entry on ADA. And then Link, we still have this daily demand inside the weekly and inside the range, so it's a medium probability zone here to look for a long. Yeah, nothing new other than that. I guess, yeah, the 3-day supply on Link would be concerning, but it would prefer maybe a test of the 3-day for a possible short before going down to the low. But I need to think about those a little bit more. Sol, Near, and Atom. I'm not sure what happened there. I'm just not deleting the zones. Okay, so again, I don't think we have any new monthlies. No new monthly zones on these. 2-week. I thought one of them was going to get a new 2-week, but maybe I missed that on the previous set. Anyway, just be careful. I think one of them, actually might have been EOS, I think might be getting a new 2-week supply. Atom here might get a new weekly and a new 3-day. And Near already has a 1 week and 3 week in there. So, and again, so similarly, Atom, Dot might both get new 3-day supplies, and Sol is also similar to Link, is going to have a new 3-day supply at the top there. My drawings seem to have doubled up for some reason. Near has a 2-day that it's just rejected. So again, none of these are really things that I would say, you know, look for longs right now on. Sol has hit this weekly zone here, so you can start looking for longs on, but just bear in mind there is a 2-day, probably going to be a 3-day supply immediately above. And you know, and this can still come down much deeper into the weekly zone if it wants to. near and I think the others, all my entries are quite a lot further away. But again, I need to look at the higher time frames on these now, because they're, yes, we have a trend line here, but we're starting to look at like the possibility of bigger breakdowns on these. Crypto Fanatic, please can I help you with your school fees? Unfortunately, I can't help you with your school fees, but I can help you learn to trade such that you can pay your own school fees. So I hope you're in my group, but feel free to come and learn from the group. Everyone's very helpful and everyone's liked my strategies and my methods. So yeah, so okay, so other than that, on dot, atom and near, need to do that higher time frame analysis, but yeah, looking for lower on these at the moment, and the confluence isn't really there for longs yet either. But mainly I just wanted to do those updates to show you the new monthly levels if they existed, and they actually don't exist on any of those majors, no new ones anyway. From an alt perspective, the totals chart, so total itself also created a monthly demand, but has obviously fallen back into it already now, so it's already testing deeper inside it. I haven't looked at these yet to see the 2 week and the 3 days and all that, but I imagine they're sort of much the same as Bitcoin. Yeah, it's looking like it's going to create a 3 day supply, it's already coming off a 2 day. So it's not looking great, I have to say, but I think it's still early days as to whether it's going to get that bigger breakdown on total, and again, it's the same with Bitcoin. Just bear in mind with Bitcoin, it can be very sudden. Total 2 is still holding this annual level as support, but it's a very tight one. I really would expect lower on this now, or would want lower on this, and it's again similar to Ether, because this excludes BTC, so it's more heavily weighted towards Ether. This is potentially a horrible pattern if we get another monthly closed, if we get a monthly close down, but we've obviously now got a whole month to go before that happens, so we'll see. We had a rejection of a 5 day supply up here, and then another rejection of a new 5 day supply. So at the moment on this, I still would want to see this down in a better demand, or some change in the structure to be anywhere remotely bullish on this, and that supports kind of my thoughts on Ether, that we're on a tentative support, but now with multiple hits on it, I kind of want lower. Total 3, I think, we also got the monthly demand on this. I think the others is the one we didn't. So we've also got a monthly demand on this just at this level. But this also had the 3 week demand already in there. But again, just pushing down inside it, they're all weak demands because we haven't made a higher high. It's the same on Bitcoin as well. I think I did say that. So it's going to make 3 day supply as well, and already has a 2 day supply. So we potentially could have a not very nice week ahead of us, which could see these drop further. So I think just be quite careful on the long side this week. And like for me, I'll be mostly looking for shorts on retests. Others the same. So others, we didn't make a monthly demand. We already had the 3 week supply, which I've talked about in my previous updates. Sorry, not 3 week, 2 week supply, which got the rejection last week. So it doesn't surprise me that alts have fallen. And I also talked a number of times about being sort of slightly wary about that similar structure to Ripple, where you get the triangle and then take out the high and then roll over, and you've got the triangle and you take out the high. Are we going to roll over? So again, I've got an alert set for this, or the weekly inside the monthly demand there, but something to be conscious of, that this structure is common. And then overarchingly, we've also got this double top, possible double top structure. But we'll see as and when levels are hit, as and when zones are hit. So at the moment we have a weekly zone here. We need to see the test on it and see if it's going to give us long entries and if it's going to make the alt market pick up. But yeah, you can see clearly here again, if we do get a close down here by the end of the day, in the next, how long have we got? 9 hours. It's sort of a clear break of that level. So we would be looking for possible short entries on the tests of these 3 day supplies. I think total DeFi was pretty much the same. I won't go into detail on that. It's 2 week supply, it's rejecting again. The crosses are kind of arbitrary on these, but you know, it's got that triangle potential. I mean, the only thing in this favor of these structures, I think, is, you know, and what most people be looking for is the possibility that we are going to have, you know, bull flag triangle breakouts. So, but again, for me, like, if I see that happen, then that's great. You know, then, you know, if these 3-day supplies fail and we suddenly throw a giant green candle straight through all this, then we buy the test. But while we're still in the downtrend, I'm not presuming we're going to break it. BTC dominance is still pushing higher, and that was the next zone that I'm interested in. It hasn't quite made it there yet, and then we'll see where everything else is at. Ether dominance, I think, still looks like shit, and yeah, I'm just not even, you know, if we're not getting the bounces off the top of these zones, then, you know, yes, it can bounce deeper inside, but you know, then what I look for is the initial bounce to give strength, and if it doesn't give strength, then I'll wait significantly longer, because it's just obviously not showing anything that I want it to show. So I'm not going to try and guess any level inside here. We'll just see when it changes structure. Others dominance is still looking ugly as well. Said before, I compare this to a lot of the alt structures, actually more than the others market cap chart. This had a monthly demand, it's got a weekly inside it, where a lot of alts sort of came down and gave the first bounce, gave a second bounce, and now, you know, quite a lot of alts are falling through this zone. So any of the alts that are falling through that zone, I wouldn't look for longs at all. Only pick longs on anything that's like looking stronger, or anything that's held up here. Total DeFi, I think, is much the same. Again, yeah, monthly demands falling deeper inside it. And there were no new monthly zones on any of those, I don't think. I did look high time frame at all these equities as well, so a lot of them are just sort of, again, stuck in indecision from my perspective. You know, 2 monthly demand, 3 monthly demand down below, but, you know, and stuck between weekly supply and weekly demand here. So again, we're just looking for a break either way, but it's just, yeah, they're quite tentative, and the market tends to either lead or follow BTC. Yeah, at the moment I'm not overly confident on them until we get through this local supply, because that's what could trigger a bigger drop. BITO is the same, weekly supply, weekly demand, overall in monthly supply. RIOT, same, inside monthly supply. You know, it's still kind of pushing and consolidating. This one I actually might think is a little bit better, but still need a bit more time, and I don't trade these actively. It's just to look at what the rest of the market might be doing. Mara, I think, was a little bit weaker, but is still on a weekly demand. So yeah, these aren't very helpful for me at the moment. The other thing was Grayscale. So that Grayscale charts are the other thing I look at, just to see what we're going to get from a confluence perspective. So the Bitcoin chart, we're going to get that same, well, we already have that same monthly demand and hitting weekly demand. So again, if we see that flip, that's fine. We can be short biased, but yeah, that doesn't give me much more. And I think all the other ETF charts are basically showing the same thing. Ether, similar to the Ether chart, really, more bearish than Bitcoin, coming off 3-week supply, has kind of tipped through this weekly. Now with new weekly supply, again, I want to see this a bit lower before I look for longs, or I need to see some flip that gives me something different on the lower time frames. And then the alt charts all frankly just look pretty awful. And I shouldn't say that, because, you know, I can say that, you know, this clearly looks awful, like it's rolling off a cliff, but it is also coming into weekly demand inside of a 2 month, so it could suddenly pick up if it wants to. But yeah, so BCH, not looking great right now, and it's just a question, you know, so we've already had a tap off the top of this 2 month demand, and it hasn't gone much higher, but again, it needs to break this 2 month for us to be much more bearish. So I don't want to be bearish at support, but I'm not liking the look of it right now, and with all the supply and new supply it's got above. And then also overarchingly, you know, this is just potentially a bearish retest of this monthly supply from back in, you know, 2021. And, you know, the break of trend, the second break of trend. So at the moment, yeah, very much in a weekly downtrend. And we just need to see if we're going to get a reaction off this support, or if we're going to run through it. GDLC, it used to be more of the other alts, but basically I think now is predominantly Bitcoin. So this is, yeah, just really looking the same as the Bitcoin chart, but slightly more bearish given it hasn't broken out the high from 2021. But again, nothing really new locally. Litecoin's another one similar to BCH, and again, this is more ugly. Again, back on support, but you know, kind of has run pretty much all through this 2-month demand. And ideally I would want lower on this, but you know, it could pick up the trend line at this point. So that, I guess the point is they're not looking great, but they're not necessarily at points that you would look for shorts. They're at points that you potentially look for longs very, very tentatively. ETC I liked on the US dollar chart, and I talked about this last week, that this was kind of interesting for me. Like, I prefer this one to a lot of the other Grayscale alts. It's on a weekly demand here. It's not the best, you know, but it's gone all the way up through this monthly supply, but it's obviously clearly looking stronger than LTC or BCH at this point. Ideally, you don't want to retrace all the way back down here, but that's something worth watching on the traditional exchanges if that's what you're trading. XLM is basically follows Ripple, holding a 2-month demand, but back up in weekly supply now. So again, and 3-week just above, so it's just tenuous. ZCSH, fairly strong rejection of a 2-month or monthly supply there. Again, would want this lower. And Zcash the same. So, you know, these are doing kind of what we see from all the other alts, so it's not surprising. But we did see this a little bit earlier on Grayscale than on the other exchanges. So, yeah, I don't necessarily think they're done, that's for sure. I don't think there's anything else on these. The other thing I wanted to say is, just for those who follow me, because I haven't really talked about this much in previous streams, but when we're looking at, so when I give you these entries, or entry possibilities for scalps, such as this and this, well, the other thing, you know, if you have access to it, so I guess, so for example, tensorcharts. So tensorcharts is free, so you can obviously have access to this if you want. It's obviously not going to load now, just to be awkward. Anyway, tensorcharts.com, you can stare at my white screen, it shows you the walls. Why is it not loading? It's extremely annoying. Okay, so I'll show you tradinglite first. Anyway, so tradinglite, this is a paid product. I'm not sure if you get anything for free. So yeah, this is if you choose to pay for it. This will show you, you can, you know, set up your different exchanges. So this is Binance and Coinbase. I have another one that has Bitfinex and Bitstamp, or no, sorry, Bitstamp and I think Binance the FD pair. But yeah, so when I'm looking at a smaller, lower time frame zone that I might get a bounce on, I'm also looking at, you know, are the supporting walls there? So it's worth checking this data to support any long entries or short entries in the zones. That helps you. So while you're looking also at structure, you know, are we seeing a structure change in a zone of interest? I'm also looking at where are the walls and where are the liquidation points. So in this case, you know, we've got sort of walls at 98k, both Binance and Coinbase. So if, you know, the entry that you were looking at is, you know, 98,500, for example, then you might think, okay, I'm going to wait till a bit closer to 98k because that's where everybody else is wanting to buy. You have to bear in mind the walls can be spoofs, they can be pulled out, but I find that a lot less common. That used to be very common back in the previous bull runs, but it's less common now. TensorCharts still doesn't want to load. I don't really want to reload. I'll try reloading the page. Just hopefully it won't wreck my stream. Oh, here we go. Okay, so TensorCharts is a free product, so that's, you know, better. I actually prefer it to tradinglite in some ways when it works, but it has had. I bought tradinglite when it had some problems. So you can set up Tensor to show walls based on every 100 or in the order book, depending on what settings you use, and you can also set up walls to show at a particular price point using the heat maps. And I actually find this in a way more useful because then I know that the chances are this 98k, for example, is a single buyer. If you see it here, it says it's 150 Bitcoin at that level. But if I know there's a wall there as well specifically, then there's more of a chance it's a single buyer. Hi Viet. Yeah, so again, useful data for if you're looking at, so in this case, say it hasn't quite, it's bounced just before the wall. And if that happens, then quite often it will come back out and take it out again. So be careful of that. But that's useful to know whether your areas that you're interested in, again, get bounces. The other thing is looking at the liquidation heat maps. So this is on, I don't know if you can see the link, but again, probably not. This is coinglass.com website. Again, free data. You can go in, you can choose your exchange, Binance, Bybit, etc., and set the time frame that you want, and it shows you all the levels where you're going to get, where you've got a lot of people sitting waiting potentially to get liquidated. So again, if you're looking at a zone where there's a bunch of liquidations right below it, then you might wait and see if you're going to get the wick through taking out the liquidations, and you can see that very much today. There were a whole bunch of walls from that is 98,600 down. There were a whole bunch of liquidation levels below here, and it's taken wicks right down into it before having bounced. So again, useful data. And the other thing I use is coinalyze. So this is also a free product, and it's coinalyze with an ALYZE. And again, you can set up, it has dashboards where you can set up, this is unfortunately not logged in at the moment, but you can set up your own dashboard. So I've got this set up where it shows me CVDs and OI, so spot CVDs and OI for each of the futures products. And then I can see if Coinbase are buying. It's a pity I can't show you right now. Again, I just don't want to waste computer resources loading. But I can see, like if price is moving up, are Coinbase buyers pushing the price up? Are Binance buyers or other spot exchange buyers supporting that? Are derivatives shorting? And the final product I use is exocharts, which is another paid product. Again, I haven't loaded this today, so it's probably not going to load either. And that does use a lot of resources. And again, like this, I will show you. So, load. Are we going to load? Yes, good. So again, you can choose, like I wish I had an amalgamated exchange for this, but you have to choose your exchange. So this is BitMEX at the moment. But what it shows you is open interest and then net longs and net shorts. So what I'm looking at here is, we've got this big drop in price today. OI is increasing, shorts are increasing. So there's a lot of people shorting in this downtrend. So far, not many people longing. And then since this previous low at 5 o'clock in the morning, again, the 98,600 low, a lot of people longed here, and then they were all getting stopped out. So you can see a lot of this data, and if the data is supporting a change in direction, like if you see what you're looking for is things like, are there a lot of people shorting the bottom? So in this case, yeah, there's a lot of people who shorted this whole last section of the downtrend. And then once we get a bounce, then we would expect to take out all those shorters. Then you can combine that with looking at where the liquidations are, and in this case they're probably just above here. Where's that? 102, 103, and you can say that all these shorters are going to support a squeeze of price up to this 102, 103k level. And that's me guessing, so please don't take that as gospel. But if that's where the liquidations are at, and then we might get a short squeeze taking out all these shorters. And you can use all this data as well very much on the low time frames. When if price does start moving up, are you seeing longs supporting that move? And the coinalyze data that I showed you a minute ago, this product, it can tell you, well, the spot CVDs are showing that there is buying happening here, divergences, etc., etc. So all of that data is what I'm using to support any scalp entries I've got here, on top of structure. So the other big thing is, we were talking about this in the group yesterday, for example, and somebody was asking me, should they take a long on Ether, because Ether I think had made a 2-hour demand, and I said, well, I wouldn't be overly confident doing that because Bitcoin has this 4-hour supply. So like first and foremost, I'm using supply and demand, and in this case, yes, that's a possible 12-hour zone to look for longs. But until it does a break of structure, and in this case it clearly made a 4-hour supply, I'm not going to be taking longs. And in fact, you know, that 4-hour supply was a decent zone to short. And similarly here, you know, here now we've dropped quite a lot, but we have a 4-hour supply. So I'm looking at what zone's been put in. So this, if we close above this level and flip this into a 4-hour demand, sure, take longs. But I won't be looking for it to long like right now, even if I think, oh, we've hit the weekly level. Personally, I wouldn't long here right into 4-hour supply. It's a doable trade with your stop down here if you want to do that. But for me, it's not high probability. I'd rather the 4-hour supply was flipped first. But anyway, I'm just going into a bit of detail on that and how to take entries, just because I've been asked a few questions on it recently. You know, once price starts going sideways and we end up in a not up only market, then people, I think, realize that they need to actually learn how to trade rather than just blindly buying any bounce. But yeah, so I have my supply and demand educational video, how I draw them, on YouTube. I've been saying for about 2 years that I want to do a follow-up saying how to actually take entries. And yeah, I finally think I'm going to get around to that in the next 2 days. So I started making some notes again today on it. Anyway, so that's that, I think, on the market as a whole. I've done all the majors. I'll give a quick update on the FARTCOIN trade, because this is one I've been talking about in quite a lot of detail in my previous streams. So this has played out like basically perfectly. So I initially said that we had a weekly demand here, and that, you know, I'd had a long entry set there, but I said there was something, when I set that entry, my first comment was there was something on this that reminded me of PopCat, but I needed to go and look at PopCat because I couldn't remember exactly what. So then eventually, a couple of days later, I did another update saying I had looked at PopCat. So this is the weekly on PopCat, and then this is the 12-hour on PopCat. So let me just zoom in and show you the 12-hour. And you can see, like, they're not identical, but there are similarities in these structures. I mean, we're talking about PopCat, which is why I was familiar with it when it was in this structure, and people were asking me to long, and I was saying I just didn't like it. But you can see here we had a grind up, and then a sort of a decent drop, but it still picked up to support. Then a final move before that was the top. And I think I was just seeing that similarity here, that we'd had a grind up, we'd had what looked like a try to break down, but then this final kind of push before the drop. And so I was looking, so I think, you know, at this point in time when we had the trend line, I was seeing a lot of other influencers and people talking about, oh, let's do the trend line break. So I set an alert on the trend line break. But again, in my update, I was saying be wary because we could reject this daily supply, and I was going to set a possible short entry on that daily supply. And again, that kind of is similar to what happened on PopCat. So this dropped down, I'm not sure exactly where. I think I was looking more at this level. You know, it kind of broke up this trend line and then rejected off, well, I don't know if that was a 2-week supply at the time, although it is now, rejected off that, made a lower low. It did push back higher. So, you know, it is possible this is going to pick up support, you know, if it was to do identically what PopCat did and push again. But at this point in time, you know, that was a very solid short entry. It was a risk it would run through some more of the stops up there, but it didn't actually. It was a very clean entry off that daily supply. Similarly on PopCat, actually, you see I showed the weekly as well, because you can actually see a very similar structure in the high time frame, you know, that it's got this grind up. Didn't really have the drop so much, but then pushed up, and then we had that 12-hour consolidation, and now in this case it's also come all the way back through. So you can see even the high time frame fractal is quite similar to the lower time frame fractal on it. But yeah, that was an interesting observation there, and just was following that trade through so people could see what the kind of things I'm looking for. I'm trying to think, I think that's all I wanted to cover on this stream. It was mainly just, so yeah, just a quick final summary, I guess. Bitcoin, new monthly demand, looking for longs on that. If it breaks, then we'll, you know, cleanly be looking for shorts. Want to see the first couple of days of the new week play out before I do much more, because every comment Trump makes is wrecking the market in one direction or the other, or more wicking actually. No, it's not, to be fair, it's not doing so much, but it's just wicking. A lot of this is what you see across the FX markets as well. It's like things are wicking around but not breaking out of local ranges. So we need to see if there's going to be something more definitive that's actually going to break things out of ranges, and with the exception of gold, which made a new all-time high. And what else? I think that's about it. And yeah, so like I say, you can keep watching the if we're looking for long entries down here. Shorts, I'll probably be looking at the 3-day supply if it confirms, but I want to see some confluence with where the CME gap's going to be, etc., etc. And I'll do an update, you know, tomorrow or Tuesday, possibly Tuesday, after I've seen a little bit more of what Monday's going to do, yeah, how we're going to open, given all the comments and the tariffs and things that have come out and been updated on American policy over this weekend. But yeah, that's about it. If there's no questions, I will move on. Please like and subscribe to support me if you're interested in these updates. If you want to know anything more, ask any questions, join my Telegram. I'm always around there answering questions. And then there's a lot of people who also help me out. And yeah, like I say, I'll try and do that second educational video in the next day as well, in the next 24 hours, to help people with entries a bit more clearly. Yeah, so thanks very much. Have a good weekend.